Hello and welcome to Inderes TV. Starbreeze published its Q3 earnings report today, and with me to discuss it, I have the CEO Adolf Kristjansson. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, if we start with the Q3 earnings report, how would you summarize the quarter from your perspective?
I would say our Q3 was defining period for Starbreeze, where we made the tough call, but necessary call to discontinue the development of product Baxter. That enabled us to put our resources to better use, to focus on and execute on our payday 3 strategy. It's clear that the non-cash impairment had an effect on our balance sheet, but it was a solid quarter. Strong cash flow and a strong underlying performance. And after this quarter, we have a more nimble, more lean Starbreeze, which is ready now to execute our long-term strategy.
And following the Baxter exit, we had an interview in early October. And during that interview, you talked about how the previous business model essentially capped the revenue per user. Can you elaborate on the structural limitation on that model that you had? And also talk about how this new live engagement model unlocks higher revenue per user. And also to what extent you expect the monetization metrics to improve as the model matures going forward.
That was a long question.
That was a long question.
Yeah. So first and foremost, the model that we are working today on is a 15-year-old model. It's a legacy model, and it's largely a transactional model, which is driven by a sale of downloadable content pieces. A live service model works completely differently. So in terms of the transactional model, you're also splitting up the community. We are putting all these amazing DLCs out there, but only few or part of our community is able to experience this content. But with a live service platform, everyone experiences the content. And it has a completely different lifetime value for the player. But also the model allows us to put out updates more frequently. It allows us to secure more engagement from players, which always have something to do. It enhances rewards engagement in terms of progression. It's almost like a vibrant world which you live in, and players like to express themselves in that world by transacting things that they like to transact to, not necessarily in terms of new content, but more in terms of cosmetics, DLCs, etc., which is more about how you play the game, and the monetization is by your own choice, versus you're basically forcing the player to buy additional piece of content to experience. So it's a completely different thing, I would say. But the cadence is very important, as you say. It needs to be it needs to be regular. We are aiming for a 4-week cadence, and that will kick off very soon.
Mm. And you talked about higher content cadence, and that is key to a live engagement model. And to be able to do that, you also need to improve the technical infrastructure to be able to deliver on this higher cadence of new content. Can you give some sort of indication on when players and investors can expect a visible acceleration in payday 3's content cadence, and what internal milestones need to be achieved before that ramp up?
Yeah. So in terms of the systems which you which you asked about, these are completely different from when you're built on a DLC model. So you need to work on those. And that is what the teams are doing, both in terms of designing those systems so they can deliver content more on a specific cadence. We've seen some of these, the Swedish studios do this extremely well, like with the Embark, with the launch of Arc Raiders. Their systems are incredible. And it will take us definitely some time to get where they are. But at the same time, we are building these systems. We are upgrading the whole slate of technologies below that the game is built on. The engine, the back-end system itself, which enables us basically to parse the game without publishing a package to our platforms, which usually takes several weeks to become live. It enables us to basically fix it on the back end. We're fixing the data telemetry. Why is that important? Because if you are reading telemetry, you see what players are, what content they like, what content they dislike, where they're successful, or less successful. So you can tweak the game after the game on an ongoing basis. We are also looking into our delivery systems to our platform partners and how we publish these. So we're essentially looking at every single area of Payday 3 as an experience and looking at also the future of Payday. It's not only that, but you mentioned also the Unreal Engine, the upgrade into Unreal 5 is not only about upgrading the engine per se. Because when you play an Unreal Engine 5 game, you expect the lighting to be completely different. It has a very specific feel to it. And we need to rework our heist to get up to that standard. So that's a part of it. We have also introduced a new philosophy in terms of design. Before, we were always trying to perfect every single piece of content before we published it. That meant we went to an nth degree of detail, building something that we thought was perfect. But when it landed with players and they started to play it, they said, hey, this is an issue, here's an issue, don't like that, this is great, but this is poor. So what we thought was perfect wasn't perfect in the eyes of players. So we've changed this philosophy. We will put out content much quicker into the hands of players. We will read the telemetry. We will talk to players. We will listen to positive and negative feedback, and we will fix the content afterwards. And that doesn't only apply to the systems themselves, but it also applies to the heists. Are there some frustrations in terms of the heist where they say, we're not going to bother with that heist, we're going to play something else? We want players to enjoy all the heists. So we'll remove all these frustrations for them basically to enjoy these. And this will be part of this regular update cadence, then you will see the meaningful update pieces, but also fixing all these issues which are frustrating players every single day.
But do you have a specific timeline on when do you expect to increase the content cadence to a monthly basis?
Yes, we are kicking this off in December with the launch of Skills 2.0, with a meaningful change to our skill system in the game. And after that, we just put out a trailer, I believe, last week on Friday, where where Paul, in our the live service GM, talked about the next few updates. So he gave update on December, January, and February. He could have gone much longer, but we want to make sure that we land this cadence. But this will kick off then and will continue throughout 26.
Okay. And I thought we could talk about work for hire projects, since it's an important pillar in your new strategy. And especially since the Krafton partnership is approaching the end, how does the near to mid-term pipeline for new work-for-hire projects look like?
So as you say, it's a part of our strategy. It has a very specific purpose in terms of even out the ebbs and flows in terms of our revenue. There's a lot of projects out there, and we are definitely open to new opportunities. But we don't just accept anything. We want to accept projects which actually fit very well with our development teams, fit to our strengths, right? Instead of just accepting anything just because you're getting paid for it with a bit of a margin on top. We are much more focused now on delivering on the payday strategy and also related strategies. Last time when I came, I talked about the UGC platforms, UFN, Roblox, and beyond. So we are investigating these platforms as we speak with the teams in question. We are also working on 2 prototypes, expanding the franchise, the payday franchise and the hosting experiences. So we're going to evaluate that before we go on Christmas leave. And we're also looking at how this team can meaningfully support the payday strategy. So one of the areas we're looking in is in terms of how we can implement modding into payday 3, like officially. So it's benefiting our players and Starbreeze as well. So very talented team, which are looking into many different areas of our business. It's almost like a flex resource, which can shift between work for hire, into payday, into these new platforms, just investigate new things which are, to be fair to our payday developers, they're super focused on delivering on the cadence, as you talked about, and therefore they don't have a lot of time to think about other things. This group, however, is the flex resource that's able to do so.
Okay. So how should investors think about the timing of new work-for-hire projects? I mean, when the Krafton partnership ends, should investors expect that you enter into a new partnership that sort of kicks in right after the Krafton partnership ends, or could it be like a small gap in between, or that you refocus more, like you put more resources on the payday experience, or how should investors think about like the new work-for-hire projects, like how they lapping each other, sort of, you know?
Yeah. There are a few projects which we are currently looking at. And as I said, it needs to be a good strategic fit for the team and the company. We might land something, we might not land something. If we do not, we will put these resources into good use in terms of supporting our strategy, but also in investigating other opportunities on, for example, on the new platforms, as I said. I mean, essentially work for hire, as I said, is to even out the revenue, the ebbs and flows of the revenue. But in the end, the main focus of the company is to revive payday and making sure that the payday franchise works across current and future platforms. So work for hire delivers, as I said, small margin on top of the cost. It wouldn't be great just to put it into much greater, where it can actually achieve much greater returns for the company going forward. We will see. It's difficult to answer that at this moment in time, but we might land a product, we might not, but if we don't, we will figure that out.
Okay. And we have seen that the gaming industry have become increasingly selective when it comes to investing in new bets, and we also seen some bigger publisher pulling back their new bets to focus more on proven IPs. would you say that this environment makes it harder to find new work for hire projects and even to build new like potential partnership around your high-staying experience vision?
I think that the industry, as you say, is now almost like there are less experiments with the bigger publishers, medium and bigger publishers. They're just focusing more on the key priorities, key IPs. You can see what that can deliver, like in terms of Battlefield. I mean, the focus that DICE and the Battlefield studios put on that franchise clearly paid off. It's a major success in terms of release. Same thing with Embark on Ark, which took about 7 years. It's a new IP, extremely well designed. It's a great game. So I think focus on your core priorities always pays off. So going back to the work for hire, we might, as I said, land a work for hire project if it fits within, if it fits our resources. If it's not a good fit, we won't take any project. We're still looking for a project, but it has to be the right ones. There's clearly more competition for work for hire projects, but at the same time, outsourcing is growing. You've seen there's a massive loss of headcount in the game industry over the past few years. And how do you resolve for that when you need resources to work on specific things within the games or reviving new IPs? You outsource. So there's also more projects out there. But we are, as I said, super focused on Payday, delivering Payday across current platforms and new platforms, and making sure that we are serving our player community in as good way as we possibly can.
And in line with the updated strategy, you also stated the ambition to reach cash flow positivity in 2026. Can you just remind us on what the key assumptions behind that goal are? And also considering this goal and the current balance sheet, do you feel that you have the financial capacity to fully execute on this new strategy without raising new capital?
Yeah. There's no plans to raise new capital. We have 135 million SEK in the bank. So we believe that we will be break even next year, which means that we don't have to eat into our cash. In terms of the assumptions, Payday 2, we just made an agreement with Sidetrack Studios, which is a new studio, which is specialized in the engine that Payday 2 is built on. So today, everybody's working on Unreal or Unity or other engines. So this is a very highly specific skill set. They recently updated their game, Raid, and updated it across the board, had more frequent updates in terms of the game. They did extremely well. The background of that studio is in modding. So this agreement has been well received by our community, extremely well received by our community, and they've already started putting bug fixes, quality of life updates out there. So we know that Payday 2 will continue to be a healthy business and will grow because we are expecting additional content to be released in 2026. So that's one assumption, Payday 2. Payday 3, we assume that with the increased cadence of content and entering a live service basically in September, October timeframe, we will have healthy revenues coming from Payday 3. And then lastly, all these new platforms which we are investigating, the collaborations we're having both in terms of IPs, in terms of on different platforms like mobile collabs and Roblox collabs and UFN collabs, these are going to deliver revenue. These are not just for marketing purposes. So that's essentially the third pillar of assumptions.
So there are no assumptions on a new work for hire projects to to meet the
I
that target?
I would say the last piece I would fall into the last assumption. But if we don't get a work for hire project, these collabs and new platforms will offset that revenue gap.
All right. And lastly, I thought we could look ahead, let's say 3 years under this new strategy. How do you envision Starbreeze business and product portfolio evolving, and which execution challenges do you see as most critical to overcome to get there? And on the flip side, what do you identify as the strongest drivers that can accelerate the progress toward that vision?
Yeah, 3 years is a long time in the gaming industry. But where I see Starbreeze, actually our time frame is about 3 years in terms of reviving this franchise. So I see Starbreeze as a multi-platform entertainment company focused on the Payday franchise, and anchored by our licensed IP partnerships, and on both current and new platforms. I think that everybody today is discounting how meaningful these new platforms are. I see my 10-year-old playing every single day on these new platforms. This is his new social network. It reminds me of when mobile games went free to play, and everybody discounted that and continued to sell mobile games at $10 or $15 a piece. We saw what happened when that launched. So I think these are meaningful to us. It's not just a marketing tool. It's also introducing the Payday franchise to future generations, which later will move on to the core experiences. I think the key challenge is the shift we're doing this year to move from the legacy DLC model to a live service platform, essentially, and having meaningful content upgrades every 4 weeks. That is what you need. And updates might even need to become even more frequent going forward. But I think 4 weeks is a fairly good and achievable goal for now on. No, I think we have, in terms of accelerators, we have great IP. As I've underlined many times, is one of the most legendary IPs coming out of Sweden. We have incredible talent in the company who stayed with Payday for many years. So they are full of energy and positivity in terms of the strategic shift of the company. And lastly, but perhaps more importantly, we are one of the biggest communities, for example, on Steam. We have community who can be highly critical of us or praise us to the skies. And that's communities, right? But I feel this is a major asset for us. It keeps us honest. It gives us feedback on a regular basis, and I'm sure they will stay along for us with the ride. So essentially the IP, the developers, and our players, these are the accelerators as we're talking about, plus the new generation of players who are going to come in the new platforms.
All right, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.